A Dash of Chaos, How a Little Noise Helps Us See Clearer, a video essay on stochastic resonance. Would you have ever thought that a little bit of noise, just some grain or static, could actually help you see better? Not blur your vision, but sharpen it. It sounds backwards, right? But sometimes clarity doesn't come from pure silence or perfection. It comes from texture, from grit, from contrast, from difference, from distinction, from seeing the foreground against the backdrop. This is what I first discovered when I looked up the term stochastic resonance. By definition, stochastic resonance is a phenomenon in which the addition of a certain level of noise to a weak input signal actually enhances the detection or transmission of that signal within a system. In simpler terms, a little bit of randomness or chaos sprinkled in can help a system pick up on something it couldn't detect otherwise, like a secret salt that brings out flavor. In biology, for example, some animals literally hear better with background static, or also neurons in the brain fire more effectively when there's just the right amount of random electrical activity. It's like the brain is tuned to the shimmer of imperfection. Just like in our own vision, right now, in your eyeballs, there are tiny capillaries and blood vessels literally sitting in front of your retina. Technically, they're obstructing your view. If your brain didn't learn to filter them out, your whole visual field would be covered in a web of lines and noise. You'd see nothing but static and clutter. But it doesn't. Your mind filters through the noise, not by removing it, but by learning how to see past it. And ironically, a little bit of that static is actually necessary. As we'll come to find out, vision needs a little noise to sharpen what really matters. I actually realized something deeper. This principle doesn't just apply to cricket hearing or brain neurons. It applies to literal perception, to clarity, to vision, even to understanding. Stochastic resonance shows up wherever subtle truths are hiding beneath the surface. Whether it's machines learning to detect patterns or humans learning to find meaning in a noisy world. This effect teaches us that sometimes clarity is born not from silence, but from a perfectly placed imperfection. A little bit of chaos, just the right amount, doesn't hide the signal, it reveals it. And in a world obsessed with clarity and perfection, it's easy to forget that sometimes brilliance doesn't come from hanging under the spotlight. It comes from the subtle dance between signal and noise, the interplay between what's seen and what's hidden. Great perception isn't just about what's present, it's about what stands out. And what stands out first needs contrast to emerge. Picture a blank white canvas. Now place a soft pink dot in the middle. It's there, but it doesn't speak. It doesn't command attention. There's nothing around it to give it context. No shadows, no texture, no landscape. Just isolation. Now place that same pink dot in the middle of a forest painting. Browns from bark, deep greens from leaves, scattered twigs, sunlight slicing through the trees, and suddenly it pops. The pink dot now has presence. It's the same shape, same color, but now it has meaning. The surrounding visual noise, the textures, the clutter, the variation gives it a place. A frame, a stage. The dot didn't change. What changed was the contrast, and the context made it visible, made it real, gave it orientation. You see, that's part of what I realized. It's not just about what you're looking at, it's about what's behind it. Because every detail, no matter how subtle, gains meaning when placed in a field of contrast. This isn't just a trick of visual perception, this is a law of the cosmos. It's how stars shine in the night sky, how thoughts rise in silence, and how purpose emerges in a life surrounded by chaos. Contrast is the divine highlighter of reality, highlighting the differences that make a difference. We think vision is about what we see, but often, it's about how we dance with the noise around it. After I first heard the concept and read the definition of stochastic resonance, I thought of a brilliant example. It was under 24 hours from first hearing the term. I thought, let's bring that insight into artificial intelligence, specifically neural networks that are learning how to see with computer vision. My realization was this: a little bit of noise, a soft shimmer of static grain, might actually help visual AI systems see better, not worse. And I thought of a great specific reason. And it turns out my reasoning was spot on. Every frame that an AI sees in a video is just a static snapshot of pixels, a single image, a single picture, a single frame. But if you introduce a soft layer of noise, a slight reshuffling of colors, a little pixel level variation, just a subtle distortion or scramble, it forces the system to redetect the same object again and again and again, each time with slight differences. And with that repetition, with that variation, something very powerful is achieved. It's like you're giving the AI multiple, unique versions of the same object every second. Not just one fixed example, but a spectrum of micro variations. Each frame becomes a new example of how that object might appear under different lighting, colors, angles, or conditions. From there, the neural network builds a statistical average, a deeper, more resilient understanding of what that object really is. It's no longer learning from one image. It's learning from hundreds, or even many thousands of adjacent truths, from drift, from wobble, from echo, from soft distortion, which means over time, the AI becomes better at recognizing that object, even in low light. Distortion, blur, clutter, or chaos. It's learning to see through the noise. You could almost quite literally think of it as artificially increasing the size of the dataset. But instead of millions of labeled images, the system teaches itself just by watching the same thing unfold over time under shifting conditions. Shifts like lighting, movement, perspective, or minor obstructions. These real-world variations force the system to refine what it's looking at continuously over time. And the beauty of it? This isn't just technical, it's elegant. It's the same principle that allows the mind to form poetry, to spot metaphors, to extract meaning from the chaos of life. The system, whether artificial or organic, isn't just learning to detect a thing. It's learning to recognize the pattern that persists through distortion, like recognizing a friend's voice on a bad phone call. Not because the signal is good, but because the essence remains through the interference. True vision isn't the ability to eliminate noise. It's the ability to recognize the melody hiding inside it. Noise isn't just interference. It's the textured canvas that allows form to be seen at all. A blank page reveals nothing, but add just enough tension, flicker, or resistance, and suddenly meaning has something to stand on. That, right there, is a perfect example of stochastic resonance, a phenomenon where adding just the right amount of noise to a system actually makes weak signals more detectable. That little layer of chaos doesn't obstruct the signal, it amplifies it. The noise becomes a kind of background hum, a field of formless randomness that helps the AI lock in on subtle patterns that would otherwise go unnoticed. And here's the paradox: the chaos becomes useful because it's uniform. It becomes a uniform entity. It's made up of pure random variation. It has no distinct shape, no pattern, no form of its own. It's formless, yet it does have a formless form, a consistently formless form, where each individual part is seemingly completely unrelated to every other part, stitching a cozy uniform fabric that seems to hold the character on top. A scattered, evenly distributed pattern of pure chance, stitched together so evenly that anything with intention, anything with shape and form, pops out against it like a silhouette on the snow. So, when something does have structure, when the object has shape, color, continuity, it pops out from this backdrop. It becomes distinguishable because the background is consistently purely random, consistently chaos. It is a consistent entity, a uniform entity. So something with no pattern is the perfect backdrop for anything with a pattern to stand out. It's like not seeing the forest for the trees, but then zooming out and seeing the entire mountainside behind it. You don't get lost in the trees anymore because the backdrop reveals the whole. That's stochastic resonance. That's clarity through chaos. That's how artificial intelligence learns to see, when the noise becomes the contrast. And let me show you another way to see it, something physical. Imagine a laser beam moving silently through a room, focused, coherent, sharp. It's a powerful signal, yet maybe to the naked eye, it's completely invisible. A powerful signal with no visibility. Thus, a weak visible signal. Weak in perception, because without contrast, even the strongest light can vanish into emptiness. Now, introduce smoke, or fog, or mist. As the particles drift into the air, the laser suddenly appears. You see its line. You see its direction. You see its shape. But the laser didn't inherently change. The smoke didn't create the signal either. It simply was the body that revealed it. The randomness of the smoke gave the signal a body. It offered a medium, a frame, a texture, something for the light to bounce off of, to interact with, to scatter through. That's stochastic resonance in visual form. The smoke is the chaos, the static grain, the randomness field. The laser is the weak signal, the quiet message, and the two together become vision. The right amount of noise doesn't completely overwhelm the signal. It amplifies it, not by turning it up, but by giving it context, a stage, a contrast, a shape to shine through. That's the secret. Sometimes clarity doesn't come from removing the chaos. It comes from letting the chaos reveal what's been there all along. And then I realized this same principle shows up in something as iconic as classic arcade video games. Games like Defender, Asteroids, or Galaga. You're flying a tiny spaceship through the vastness of space. The only thing around you? A black screen, and a scattering of white pixel stars. Now, here's the thing. If the background was just pure black, you'd barely be able to tell which direction your ship was moving. Left and right? Up or down? It would all blur together. There'd be no frame of reference, no contrast, no orientation. But those stars, though few as they be, the scattered noise across the void suddenly became a visual anchor. Now, when your ship moves, you feel it. You see the drift. You know the direction. They're not even real stars to a significant degree. Just a few white pixels. But they're just real enough. Real enough to serve a purpose. They have a function. A visual anchor against the void. A background. Just noise, clutter, or static, until it gives you something to measure against. Those pixel stars are pure stochastic resonance in simple visual form. The same principle shows up in modern game design too. In deep underwater exploration games, for example, developers often add drifting bubbles, particle fields, or scattered debris. These subtle visual layers help the player track which way the character or vessel is swimming. Without them, motion underwater becomes ambiguous, unanchored. The particles provide directional feedback, just like pixel stars in space, just like AI detecting objects, just like the human eye adjusting to light. Even chaos has its place when it reveals the signal. And chaos, often something overlooked, often looked past, often passed by, isn't where we place our attention. Because it's not the shape that stands in the spotlight. It's the thing holding the spotlight up for the things that stand in that spotlight. It's not the figure in the painting. It's the canvas beneath it. It's not the sound in the song, but the space that gives the note its meaning. It's the skeleton before the flesh, the scaffolding before the empire, the silence before the voice, the breath before the word. We don't focus on chaos, but chaos is what allows us to focus. It's the structure beneath structure, the invisible rhythm that gives attention its edge. So, would you have ever thought that noise, something we often try to eliminate, might actually help us see more clearly? That clarity can come not from perfection, but from texture, from contrast, from difference, from distinction, from finally seeing the foreground against the backdrop. Because that's what turns a single pink dot into something you notice, into something that matters, just like AI, just like the forest, just like the human mind, just like the stars in space, or the bubbles in the deep, or the laser threading through the fog. Because when noise sharpens the contrast, even something as small as a pink dot begins to matter again. That's how we learn to see. That's the beauty of stochastic resonance. Because whether it's stars behind a spaceship, or data behind a decision, or thoughts behind a mind, the truth is this: noise isn't the enemy of intelligence, it's the contrast that defines it. And when understanding is forged within the realms of uncertainty, it becomes lightning in a bottle. And maybe that's what vision truly is, not just what we outright see, but how we dance with the noise that surrounds it,